Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Champions of Hara is this adventure game. You're taking these warriors or people out and going on adventures, and there's a story attached to it. And I've put off this review for a very long time, and I have a hard time even doing it now. What are my thoughts on this? There are a lot of these games out, right? There are a lot of these games that take characters on adventures and have stories, and I feel like Champions of Hara is like dead center in the middle of it. I feel like the adventure isn't that epic. The board isn't that epic. It's weird how the board just picks up and moves, so we have to move the tiles around. It's just very odd, and it feels more like a board game and less than as an adventure. Now, I play a lot of these dungeon crawls and adventure games like Seventh Continent and even Descent or Resident Evil 2, the board game. All these games, a Tainted Grail that are coming out, and I feel like Champions of Hara is one that has a rabid fan base, but it probably doesn't go out very far. So the people who like it really like it, and this kind of tempers off from there. And I kept thinking to myself, why do I think that's the case? Well, I think that's because the game, it feels like a board game when I'm playing it. I feel like the things that I'm doing are because it's a board game. Where sometimes when I play a game, I feel like, oh, this is happening because I'm on an adventure, or this happened, and I kind of lose the game a little bit. So if you'll follow me, or something like Zombicide, even though I'm just chucking dice, I feel like I'm doing things because I'm on this adventure. I gotta find this mission, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And even though I'm rolling dice and have actions, I can sometimes get lost in the theme of it. With this one, I never felt like I got lost in the theme. Perhaps because the theme itself doesn't speak to me. This isn't the kind of theme that I would like. But it just felt like very gamey. And it was mechanical how I was going through things. Now, a lot of people would probably disagree with me on that. And it tries really hard to have a story. But I think that I'd rather play Tainted Grail than this, for example, as a story game, or a Seventh Continent instead of this as a story game. I don't feel like anything I was doing was particularly interesting. So while it's like in the middle of everything, I don't feel like it did any one thing great. I feel like it was fine. I was having a good time. It was all right. It wasn't something I'd be like, this is terrible. It's broken. Doesn't work. None of those things. I felt like it was an enjoyable experience. But when you have so many options, how does this fit into it? So I think I figured it out. I think this is more of a board game, where you'd have a dungeon crawl like a Descent, or an adventure game like Seventh Continent, like a story-driven game. I feel like this plays more like a board game. Like, I'm going to sit down for an hour or two and have a board game. Now, it has a campaign, so based on what character wins, you go on with this other story, or it can be a one-off, so whatever you want to do, or you can do the campaign thing. And I even think of something like Mythic Battles Pantheon. Like, I think I'd rather play that than this. And it's hard because any of these games I've spoken about, you can say, well, it's not like that game. Here, it's like this game. I'm like, it's so much in the center of everything. So if you were doing like a Venn diagram of all these games, I feel like Champions of Hara would be like right in the center of it, because it has a little bit of everything, which means it was like not a master of anything. So very solid game, very good game. I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. It just did not appeal to me, as I felt like the mechanics of the game was seeping through a little bit too much for me. The theme. So this is where I stuck with this one, and I struggled with it. So I am going to keep it. It's not something that's high on my playlist. If somebody came along and wanted to buy it, I would probably sell it. I've painted up my copy. I think it's a fine little game. I think it can sit on my shelf. I think I have room for it, but it's not something I'm dying to get back to the table. So it's a little bit above mediocre. I'd probably put this game about a 7. In a world with games dominated with 9s and 8s for me, this game is a 7. It's better than a lot of games out on the market, but I don't know that it had the it factor. I think this is one I'll probably come back to and I'll re-review one day, but I definitely wanted to go ahead and get my thoughts out on video, let you know what I thought. So it's a keeper. Man, does it barely squeak by. Let's take a look at the components here. These miniatures you're going to get, they're going to come unpainted. You're going to get a few of these here. Here's a couple that I like the most. Now remember, these come unpainted. Mine are all painted up. You're going to have some of these corrupted that you will be able to use. Now these are kind of the bad guys that you will use in the cooperative mode that will kind of come out. You can see these have really nice miniatures. This guy riding this thing with these fangs coming out. These are very nice miniatures that look pretty good, actually, especially for a game of this magnitude. And here's the third bad guy that you will have in the game. Once again, these are all painted up for me, but yours will not. Now, you do have the two good guys, or heroes, that I showed you. In addition, you will get this miniature right here. These are like sonic booms coming out or something. And you're going to have Leaf, who is kind of like a Groot type character. He has a lot of plant, maybe part tree. Very neat character. And then you're going to get a couple more heroes. So there's going to be 6 heroes in total, and 3 of the bad guys that will be in there. So you can kind of see what you're getting here. Heroes are much smaller than the bosses, or the corrupted as they're called here. Not too much smaller, but a little bit. The tiles, these things are a little bit thin. They're okay. I think the artwork is pretty cool in here. Some of these monsters that you're going to have. You can see here, the artwork really brings it alive. You know, I kind of prefer minis. I think this works fine. They're better than chits, perhaps, but they are kind of thin. The flavor text is a little bit thin. I know a lot of people are talking about how they really like the story in this one. I don't know that it came across to me. These tiles are fine. You're going to get a lot of these hexagonal-shaped things. They're a little hard to shuffle for me. You are going to have some cards. There's a custom insert that you will have here. Everything fits in really nicely. You will get some cards that you'll be utilizing throughout. They're fairly nice. Not the best quality that I've seen. You can tell that these don't have any artwork at all on them. And each of the characters are going to have their own deck of cards they're going to start with, and their own kind of deck, you know, and things. Here's a card that everybody will get for each character that will kind of tell a little bit about them. There's a bio on the back, kind of how they are. And then you'll have this, they each have a unique system, like what stance this guy's in. Some use grit, some use fear, etc. The cards are fine. I do like the personalized insert here that's customized. I think the opponents are pretty good. The miniatures are better than maybe these tiles, but everything kind of works. A lot of people like the artwork in this game. It really pops for this game, and I gotta say, I don't disagree too much. Here's a rulebook for Champions of Hara. You're going to see a table of contents here and a picture with all the components over here. Very handy. I like this quite a bit. You have an introduction. It's going to tell you about the versus area and the story arc, and a setup of the game here. It's kind of weird how it's all set up. It works. It does some descriptions of why it's doing it. It's a little wordy if you just want to set the game up and you already know how it works and plays. I wish it was just a setup phase. They give you some concepts like leveling up, gaining energy, kind of how that's going to work, and order cards. So all before it teaches you how to flow. Now this is the flow of the game. This is the page that you'll be on a lot just to make sure you're doing the functions correctly. And then the rest of it's going to teach you like ability cards and how to move. There's not a whole lot of rules in it. The monsters, as long as you know what everything is correlating to, how the challenges work, and then the other tiles that may come up and how you're defeated. Now, the majority of the game is how you win, and so here's where, like, the scenario starts, like, if you wanted to play more of a cooperative game with the corrupted, and how to include those in. Little bios about the champions, how that works, and the rest of this book's going to be scenarios, and kind of how you do that is, for the most part, you're going to play a competitive one, and then you can drop in. So if this Karu won, you would go into their scenarios and start playing it. Or you can just drop in and play something if you wanted to. And some of these are solo. Some of these are going to be cooperative. Some of these are going to be competitive for different players. A 2+ player, and you solo for that one. 2+, 2 or 4, so not 1 or 3 there. But it'll tell you a glossary of terms, which I never really needed too much. And then just some advertisements here and a little index on the back, which is appreciated. Rulebook's actually pretty good. I didn't really have any problems when I started playing the game. It's actually super simple if you just follow along with what's going on. Good job. So I'm going to show you a little bit about Champions of Hara and how it's kind of set up and kind of how a few things will move around the board. I'm not going to be teaching you all the rules, but I kind of want to show you just the flow of the game. So what you're going to have here is the turn marker that will go around. You're also always going to have a dawn phase and then a dusk phase. And these are turns, if you will, but they also represent days, a dawn and a dusk. So as you're going through here, the dawn and the dusk, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of these out. And these little things, and you will place it on the one for each one. If it's an event, it goes face down. If here's an event, it will go face down. If it happens to be a monster, then you will take it, and it will go face up on the spot. And you will do that for each of these that will be here, and it's an event. So it's kind of set up here for you about what you're doing. Now, you're also going to have a world deck that will be set aside, and you will have a dusk deck that is off of the board, and you kind of have this to be utilized during the game. So that's the first thing I do in the dawn phase is knock over one of these. Events go face down, monsters go face up. Each player's going to get one of these player boards that will be exactly the same for each player. This will track your health on this side through 10. This will be your spirit that you'll be able to get as you go. And this will be whether you live or die, of course, and this you'll spend throughout the game to do things. During the game, you're trying to track these blue, red, and green tracks that you'll get. So on some of these, you'll see that, like, for example, on this monster one, if you were to defeat it, you're going to get 1 green, no blue, no red, and the gold is wild. So you're just going to move up these tracks. If you ever get to the middle spots, you're going to be able to add cards into your deck. If you get to the top of all 3, and you get back to the dojo, so you'll be moving around this board, if you get back to the dojo, all 3 are on top, then you'll be able to win the game. What you're going to be doing in the game for the most part is moving your character around. If you go in these event spaces, then you will just flip this over, and then you will do what it says. So here, what you'll do is you get 2 on the green track, which I just showed you. Give you a little bit of flavor text about what happened. And then you will try to roll an 8 on this die. Now, this little cup here, the way this works, it means that you have to give up the spirit that I showed you on the spirit track. So you can give up as many as you want before you roll the dice. This will be different than what you'll see in the Dusk ones later, where you can spin the spirit after you roll the dice. So on the events, you might want to give up, 3. Then you have to roll 5 or higher on this dice in order to succeed. You always get the goodie on the top, and then you have a fail or success that will occur at the bottom. If you get to fight a monster, this is their health, this is their range. If you beat him, you get this goodie here, and then you'll be able to get what you have here on the tracks, and then you'll go through the item deck, and you'll find, in this case, the number 11, and you'll go through the deck, you find the number 11, and then you would get the goodie. In this case, Swamp Juice is what you would add to your deck. So this would go into your discard pile. I'm not going to go too depth into the game. For the most part, all you're doing in this game is moving around and countering the events and fighting the monsters. That's pretty much what you're doing in the Dawn stage. You're also going to have these hand of cards that you're going to have for when the game starts out. Each of the cards is going to be double-sided. You're going to have what you can do on it from your hand, and on the other side, what you can do for it if it's played down. So let's say this guy is a dash, and I can move up to 2. So I would play this down, and I can play 3 actions. So I would play this down into my discard pile, and then I can move my guy 2 spaces. 1, 2, let's say. Or 1, 2. So let's say there's an event here. I could go 1, 2, and I would be on the event. Now, because it's an event, it would immediately trigger. I would get my goodies, try and pass the test, and then it would be discarded off of the board. If I was on a monster space, 1, 2, then I would fight the monster, win, lose, or draw. The monsters don't move around the board. They stay stationary. This one says, in hand, deal 2 damage, range 1, cost a grit. So I would pay 1 of my grit, and I could do 2 damage to him. So the only way I can fight him is if I'm playing a card that will deal damage to him. He doesn't fight back. This is just the damage that I would do to him. Once again, I play that down on my discard pile. And then maybe I would play this one that says, your next attack this turn, a single deals +1 damage, cost a grit, blah, blah, blah. So you play your cards. Now, in future rounds, if you have these cards down, you can see on the unboard side, deals 3 damage, range 0, cost 2 grit. Then I would pick this up back into my hand. Now, every card can only be played once per day. So I wouldn't be able to do that again. So that's kind of how this works. When it's in your hand, you play what's in the hand. When it's down, you play what's on this, and you just kind of tap it to show that you've already played it. So that's kind of how these cards are going to work. When it gets to the dusk phase, what you'll do is you'll roll this dice. It will tell you the location on the board and the number. So I got the leaf and a 1. There's nothing here. I would take a dusk, and I would put it on there. And you're going to add a number of these dusk tiles equal to number of players +1 each round. So these are going to be rifts that you can do. When you go to this location, you're going to get the goodie that's there, and you're going to be able to roll the dice and see if you can get the success or not. And whether you succeed or fail, it would still be discarded off of the board. Now, when you go from day to day, you're going to take one of these World Shift cards that you'll take from the top of the deck. It'll give you a little flavor text, you have a pass that you will do, and a lot of times what it's going to do, it's going to have you actually pick these up and switch locations with these on the board. So you want to be really careful that it keeps the same directions. But so these will move around. If you happen to be on it, you're going to move with it. So these will kind of randomly move as the World Shift cards come out. And that's a day of the game. You continue to do this game until somebody wins. Now the main game is a versus mode where you want to get 3 of your tracks up and get back to the dojo to be the winner. At that point, if you want to do the campaign, you would branch off from that winner. They have their own individual campaigns, which can be cooperative or competitive, and you kind of go through those scenarios. For the most part, very simple game. You're going to move around the board, based on the cards that you're playing, going to attack based on the cards, or interact with an event. That's really the majority of the game. Who should buy this game? If you like strict rules and you don't mind your experiences being a little bit condensed down for time purposes perhaps, but this one's going to play more like a board game and less like an experience or an adventure. So you guys are kind of racing to get what you need by a certain period of time. Then you go on, if you want to play the campaign, you go on to the next campaign. So the games that you're playing are kind of connected, but it doesn't have to be played. That could be totally a one-off if you want it to be. But you can upgrade your characters and kind of go through with that. And I think that that's going to appeal to a certain type of gamer. If you're looking for just a casual game, this probably is not going to be it. It's not a lifestyle game either, it's somewhere kind of in the middle. If you're looking for an adventure that you guys can play for a couple hours, upgrade your characters, and have a good time, this is probably it. Are there better options on the table? I think so, but pricing comes into some of these things, theme comes into some of these things, so you're going to look at this and say, hey, does this theme appeal to me? Does the price appeal to me? Versus something where it might be a Kickstarter bloated project, right? The Champions of Hara may be exactly what you're looking for. For me, it's a keeper, barely squeaks by. I see myself purging this. If somebody came along and really wanted my copy, I'd probably let it go. I'm on the fence about this one, and I don't normally do this. I usually have a strict keep, strict purge, so I am saying keeper. Barely. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you liked it, please like it and hit that little subscribe button. That really helps out the channel, lets us know that you're getting the videos that you want. If you agreed or disagree with what I said, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I promise that I will comment back. Thanks for watching, and everybody else, keep playing.